So, tell me, the ones where there are animals that you suspect probably shouldn't be in the same place at the same time, do you know what the sort of time lapses and things were?
Well, okay, yeah, that's a good question. Cat, mouse, badger, and insects. So yeah, things like cat and mouse, for instance. I have one which is just cat and mouse. To say something about, I could bore you all to death, but there's a story behind each one of these. Because the process behind it is so long, what this is literally the final showing of something which is taking a long time to build up. So it could be that there's, you can ask me about a few of them, but I could go all day. But this one was done on, it's a concrete bridge in a marsh. There's a marsh on one side and a road the other, and there's a ditch. And there's a concrete bridge for people to use to gain access to the marsh. I presume for cattle, because there was often a lot of cattle droppings and things on this bridge. But of course, things like badgers that want to get onto the marsh to feed on earthworms and things were using this concrete bridge rather than trying to cross over the water. So I thought, aha! So I put a plate out there and realised that it was a thoroughfare. It was an M25 for animals at night. So, and then that led to all sorts of other things where I realised that a lot of animals that live within, within an urban environment are very used to using human paths, and they're very used to using it's the path of least resistance. If you've got an area of grass which is this high and somebody's mown a little path through the middle, the badger will take the path through the middle because it doesn't get wet and it doesn't have to battle its way through the grass. So these kind of little paths that we make for ourselves are often used by animals at night. So this one, this was I knew the badger was using it. I managed to capture the badger footprint, but there's somebody's domestic cat was on here, and Maris as well, so it's quite sweet. I kind of loved the idea, maybe, that cat and mouse came together, but they didn't.
The mouse is probably just as happy.
I think you're right. And you can tell that because you can begin to read, when you look into tracking, you can begin to read the pace of the animal. It's a long language to go into, but there's to do with the gait of the animal, which is to do with the stance. When very small-legged animals speed up, obviously the distance between the front and the rear feet becomes longer, and they change their gait, which means they often change the position of the legs, and so you can tell an awful lot from the track. And I won't go into all that now because that's a much more of a scientific kind of explanation, but by looking at it you can tell that the mouse has been running around doing its normal thing, doesn't appear to have been spooked by a cat, and the cat's just walked on and off the plate at a quite slow pace. So this was out for maybe, does it say? It doesn't. It was probably out of the night, so maybe out for some 8 hours or 6 hours or something through the night. So at some point, a mouse visited the plate, so did a badger, and so did some various insects, and so did the cat. This is a badger nose.
To watch this, or
Sorry?
did you stay up at night to kind of see?
No, it's a good question. I became crepuscular and nocturnal while I was doing work. I basically would blacken the glass during the day and then try and kick after I finished doing it, and then I would put the plates out after the last dog walker was out. Which is, do you know what, probably weird, we walk dogs at really weird strange times. Sometimes I was at the wood and go, why are you walking the dog? It's 2:15 in the night. People do walk their dogs on time, so obviously if I'd left them out, people's dogs might investigate them when you get a lot of dog prints, and so I would wait for the last dog walker to kind of disappear, and then I would scurry around and make these plates out, and then normally be before dawn, because hey, the dog walkers are out again. Actually the dewfall ruins the surface as well, so I was keeping a really close eye on the weather and the dewfall and the temperature and things. I got quite used to it at the time. It's funny how we develop these senses. I got a real sense of when the dew was going to fall by how much the temperature's dropping and the clouds, and getting used to that. Got all that at the time.
So the substance has only a short shelf life. That's why they did it during the day.
Yeah, really. It's just so, you can blow it in the spittle from your mouth, will just warm up on the surface. So on a windy day, for instance, all it takes is a single leaf to get down across, and it's got a big stripe across it. It's so easy to ruin. And I know this is one of these stories of the fish that got away, but there were some amazing prints that I had. Getting out from a wood. You've ever tried walking through a wood with one of these plates under your eye? It's ridiculous. So, a bramble leaf in the dark, for instance, might just catch across you. So, oh no! It happened so many times. But
Martin, is this a tried and tested method, or did you come up with it?
That's a good question. It's a cross between the two. I don't think it's been used in this way. I found, I think it was 18th century painters used to use a process called cliché vert, which was blackened glass. I think it means copy glass or something, but they used to use a pin and they would hold it up to an environment, to a landscape, and they would draw with the pin all the elements in the landscape and take that back to the studio where they would then paint. And so it had all those, it had like a way of taking a photograph before photograph was invented.
So is it fixed?
It's not fixed, you can't spray it. If you try and spray it with fixative, it will just blow away. So there's two plates of glass. So the first one you're looking at is the actual the surface. No, I'll rephrase that. The one you're looking at is the one that the animal walked across, but it walked across, if you like, on the inside. So you're looking at the underneath of the plate. And then between them is a little sandwich of, on the very earlier pieces, it's just silicone sealant that you'd use around your bath. And then later on I managed to contact a company that made sealed double glazing units. So they've got a little bimetallic strip around the outside, which you can hermetically seal it. So you actually put the two strips together. There's no part of the glass are touching, which is important. So only around the edges there's this bit of hidden strip touch. So the whole thing, I think when they make double glazing units, sometimes they extract the oxygen, they put nitrogen or something inside them. I think they pump them with something that stops moisture, but I wasn't able to do that because it meant pumping them in. So they're just two sandwich bits of glass stuck together and then framed. Yeah.
Martin,
Yes.
I'm very curious to know how the experience of doing this kind of work has fed into whatever you did next.
Okay, yeah, nice. I was very lucky where somebody from Dartington, you come across Dartington, that runs the AA down in Falmouth, approached me and said that he was running various courses and would I like to take this process to another step further. And he was very kind to offer me some money to do it, so it was fantastic. I had 3 months paid, where I, rather than just track, what I found when I was tracking was I still felt like I was a bit like a visitor in the place. I was driving in my car, getting there in the morning, walking around, looking at these tracks, and often the animals, let's say for instance there was a deer, it might have heard me coming and run away, so I was still spooking the animals. I still felt like I was an outsider. What I wanted to do was to have a process where I was living in the place so that I could be much more immersed in the ecology. And so that's what I started to do. I bought a lightweight tent, and I started tenting and realised that was no good, so I ended up building bivvies just from the natural material that was around. And over a period of about 6 months, I actually employed a few people who have become friends actually to show me how to survive in the place. So I learned how to kind of find food and that kind of thing, so foraging, and all those things became part of this process. And so it became much more about me just a human being, just learning how to be a human being really, and not this funny little city-dwelling thing that I've become over the years. But it was really lovely, yeah, to kind of go and munch on various things that are around and be a bit more comfortable in the place. It's not very easy, by the way. I don't find it very pleasant now. I love it.
Where was that?
It was in two places. One was in the Bovey Valley in Lusty Cleeve, and the other was a place down near Falmouth. There was a place that a friend of mine, or a guy that was on the course down there, had a little dinghy, and he used to row across to this bit of woodland that no one could ever get to. It was absolutely superb to spend time there because it really was cut off by two rivers that came through, and it was an area that no one ever got to, which was wonderful. But yeah, the process of just kind of immersing in the place became really important. And that's really where it carried on. I ended up making some, running a living from working for Wildwise, who are based at Dartington. So they're kind of you've probably come across lots of nods in it. So Wildwise, environmental education, if you like. So I've been an instructor for them for 4, 5, 6 years now. I can't remember quite how long. And it's kind of seasonal work, not very often, but it became a way of me using some of the skills that I developed during this process to share with kids. Yeah, and I've carried on doing that now. Actually, I actually work there for Somerset Wildlife Trust as an education officer for 3 days a week, and I take kids out into the woods and build babies with them and things. Yeah.
think we'll probably take one more question if there is one, because there's important things not happening out there.
How on earth do you find the track of cricket?
The cricket one was
How do you,
that was one
so
of
how
the,
do you find it?
that was a really lovely fortuitous one. I was actually in a meadow which was very tall grass, and on the umbilicus, on the parsley's house or whatever, there were some really beautiful spiders, and I wanted to try and get one of these spiders to crawl. And so I had these small plates in boxes, and I would have a cardboard box with a cardboard lid, so we fitted over it so nothing, how I stopped them from getting ruined on the way in and out. And I took off the lid, and the cricket landed straight onto the plate, and I was kind of, oh god! So I was holding it, and I thought, well, and I waited for like 10 minutes for this cricket just to make its mind up. So it landed on the top of the plate there, and then it crawled into the centre, and then it jumped. and I still remember this noise, as it leapt. And you can see, if you look, you can see the power of the rear legs as it left. It was one of those I just thought, that's perfect, so I'll just put that back on. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Fabulous. Last question. If you think you can give one or more of these a home, I'd snag this man while he was here. And the catalogue from the show is also out there for sale. Those are a couple of things. And thank you.
And Martin, you will be around for a while now. People have other things to ask.
Some questions, yeah?
So yeah, back to the